Welcome, Midgardians, to another episode of That Midgard Show. I'm Clay.
And I'm Joe.
Together, we embark on a journey through the rich tapestry of the Midgard campaign setting brought to life by koboldpress.
Yep, and in our last episode, we delved into the diverse cultures of the Northlands, drawing parallels to our own world's dynamic tapestry of traditions. But don't worry, for our current path diverges temporarily from the Empire of Ghouls campaign. In the coming episodes, we'll unravel the secrets of the Northlands' locations and lore before venturing forth into the next chapter of the Empire saga, Catacombs of the Ghul King.
But before we unfurl the map of this episode's exploration, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to you, our cherished listeners. If you like what we're doing on That Midgard Show, we'd appreciate your support. Give our episodes a hearty thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to leave a rating and a review on your preferred podcast platform. Your gestures not only help others uncover That Midgard Show, but also stoke the fires to continue crafting more episodes for you. In our last episode, we discussed how Northland kingdoms consist of multiple small communities, each led by a jarl who has a long haul, a few ships, and sometimes calls themselves a king. Inhabitants of this region always boast of their fertile land, abundant timber, and great fishing. Now, while there are numerous fjords and valleys, not many people can endure the harsh winters there. Consequently, only the bravest claim the land and the titles that come with it. Over time, some of these small kingdoms have grown into significant powers with the aid of dwarven mining and magic, human resourcefulness, perseverance, and the wise words of the Hogun and the shield maidens of Thor. Although they're small, each Northland kingdom is a precious treasure to its people, unlike any other. So in this episode, we're going to delve into the eastern part of the Northlands and discuss Tanserhall, Björnrike, and Trollheim. The very furthest eastern portion of the Northlands lies Tanserhall, and it is a revered and ancient city of dwarves, cherished by Volund and Thor. Located behind its sacred hearths and shrine lies the Cradle Cave, where the patron gods breathed life into the first dwarven people. Volund showered them with precious metals and glittering jewels, while Thor exemplified courage and glory. He told them that these treasures belonged to them until the end of time. Now, the Tanserhall dwarves are a pious and reclusive heritage. The few who choose to travel there describe it as an awe-inspiring complex, more a massive underground cathedral than a city. The dwarves worship Volund and Thor with equal reverence to avoid provoking their anger again. They listen attentively to the wise counsel of Wotan, and they maintain the purity of their birthplace by barring other races from most of the halls. Even the dwarves from other cantons must undergo purification and sanctification rituals before they can enter. For other races, it's almost impossible to gain entry due to the labyrinth of bureaucracy and dwarven stubbornness. To deal with those who refuse to use proper channels, the dwarves have constructed a treacherous maze of trapped corridors to intercept unwelcome visitors. Transgressors are rarely seen again, and rumors suggest that only 1 in every 100 is spared. The rest are transformed into stone statues that serve as warning and wards against further intruders. Now, Tanserhall was once nestled among lofty peaks, but those peaks were destroyed by Thor's wrathful hammer. Now, the most hallowed hall sits among mere hills. Terrace farms are scattered across the jagged slopes, tended by free dwarves overseeing many thralls from other races. Now, farming these arid hills is arduous work, but it's preferable to toiling in the mines. Emerging from deep within the Cradle Cave is an ominous and terrifying foe in the form of a horde of Chernobog's offspring. These ink-black elk-horned brutes stand upright and are formidable in combat. Many have fought them, but the creature's terrible jaws deliver an infection that can turn the inflicted into another of those beasts. Why they have come now and what they want has not yet been discovered, but their aim is clearly hostile.
Yeah, now there's a few locations in this area. In addition to the city of Tanserhall, other major towns are Rook's Cove and Veles Fang. Rook's Cove is a settlement ruled by Hangas Staffbreaker. He's a male Trollkin barbarian, where both human and Trollkin reside on the freezing shores of the Nether Straits. This place is popular among pirates and outlaws who frequent the Northlands. However, the Neater Straits has very little trade, which means there are very few targets for these pirates and outlaws. Furthermore, the targets that do exist in this area are heavily fortified and well protected. As a result, people who come to Rook's Cove are usually desperate, fearless, violent, and capable of handling tough situations. The inhabitants of Rook's Cove are worried about the rumored arrival of Wolfheim ships that have come to enslave people. Due to this fear, dwarves are often unwelcome in Rook's Cove and are treated with anything from caution to straight up immediate attack. Now, Veles Fang is a place named after a smooth spit of rock that extends into the bay. It marks the endpoint of a trade network that spans various rivers, lakes, swamps, and streams, from Vadim and points south to Björnrike and beyond. Shallow-bottom longboats navigate this intricate waterway and engage in a trade with Kazaki tribes, wandering caravan, and anyone willing to make a fair bargain. The village is home to a mix of Hogan, Trollkin, and Bearfolk, and is overseen by a male Hogan road named Herleif Sharptongue.
In the Midgard World Book, you'll find adventure prompt sidebars for almost every region. Now, these prompts can be used to create your own adventures. Now, although we haven't used them before, we're going to start doing so in our discussions to give you some ideas for kicking off your own adventures in the areas we discussed. Now, koboldpress has a lot of adventures, but they don't have an adventure for every corner of Midgard. So keep in mind that we're just riffing here. Anything we mention should be fleshed out more, which is where you come in. So the first adventure prompt involves earning the trust of the Tanserhall dwarves, particularly if you come from a different heritage. Alternatively, they may be leading our heroes on a wild goose chase. So the story goes that the dwarven wizards of the Citadel have discovered a way to raise their mountains around Tanserhall to their former glory using an epic ritual. In order to carry out this ritual, the PCs are hired to obtain rare materials from the distant deserts of Natal. Now, this essentially translates into a go fetch adventure, where the prominent inhabitants send our heroes on a mission that they themselves will not undertake. So maybe our heroes are expendable, who knows? But this venture offers you a lot of flexibility, and due to the great distances our heroes have to travel, it can be turned into a campaign, quite honestly. If you want, all the players could also be dwarves, since Tanserhall is a closed society. Such a campaign could be broken down into several episodes. For example, your first episode is the call to adventure, and the next episode could be the journey to Natal. Next, arrival in the city or town of Natal, followed by some adventuring and exploration. Then our heroes head to the desert outside Natal to follow a lead on an oasis that they should visit. When they arrive to this oasis, they can do a little adventuring and exploration to seek clues to their destination. And at some point, our heroes will arrive at some desert ruins, which is their final destination to find what they're looking for. Once they've gathered that, they can return to Tanserhall with the materials that they were sent to retrieve. Perhaps they are being followed by some nefarious secret society. We wrap up the campaign with the heroes assisting in the ritual to raise up the mountains, possibly some combat with a secret society that followed them back to the Northlands, and then you've got the finale, the grand finale. While this prompt is just like a single sentence, you can really flesh this out into a massive adventure. So now, although this outline may seem like a predetermined path, the infamous railroad, it's important to consider that any adventure you run, you don't know what the players will ultimately do. And that happens a lot in my own games. Therefore, it is advisable to have some side adventures in your back pocket. There are plenty of Warlock Lair adventures in the Southlands that you can adapt to any location your players choose to go. If they want to explore Purbastet, you can run them through the City of Cats adventures. Perhaps the materials they need can be found in a Purbastet bazaar instead of deep into the desert. There is this great resource on the koboldpress website that has all of their adventures. And it's filterable, which is like even more useful. So you can filter by region, party level, author, etc. We'll have a link to that page in the show notes below. So use it. I use it all the time. A lot of times I'm lazy. I don't want to write an adventure or anything, but you can see how a single prompt can be just split out into a massive campaign.
Yeah, koboldpress writer Lou Anders actually started that. He was doing a spreadsheet that he maintained and posted on one of the Facebook groups, and then finally koboldpress just adopted it and put it on their website, and it's made life so much better. So yeah, it's great because you can just kind of sort by, region, location, level. Like there's all sorts of different filters you can go with to find the adventure that just kind of fits your needs for that area, and it'll make life a lot easier. And I really like too how you kind of broke this down into kind of episodes with like every call to adventure to finale. Kind of made this 9-step adventure from a single prompt. Recently on the koboldpress blog for Midgard Mondays, Ben Eastman has been doing these great blog posts called Blowing Up Midgard, where he's taking simple ideas and turning them into these world-shattering campaigns. And he's just giving us a rough outline that we can then fill in. But you could do that with literally any kind of adventure prompt. And you did a great job, I think, breaking this one down and turning it into, I would say, at least a 10 or 12 level adventure.
It's simple. It's easy to do. When I was looking at that prompt, I'm like going, gosh, you can't do that in one setting. I mean, they have to go from the Northlands all the way down to the Southlands. And that's a hell of a trip, especially when you're just on a sailing vessel. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even with Shadow Roads, right? It would be a journey. And all sorts of stuff to happen. And then, man, the Southlands are fun. I mean, you can go down a rabbit hole in the Southlands. So somebody, I can't remember who it was, had just mentioned they had just played through all the City of Cats adventures. They do all tie together. A lot of those books will be a bunch of like one shots or 2 shots or whatever, but they do all kind of they can be linked together and tied together. So very, very cool book to use for that area. There's another one that's not in there called Last Gasp that I really like. So that could be maybe the location where the item is. It's an adventure where you go into a tomb and you get sealed in and there's very limited oxygen. So you're tracking oxygen consumption, things like fires and how many people and how long you take. And there's like traps and stuff like that that'll all consume the oxygen. So it's forcing them to move through at a certain pace or they will suffocate and die in this tomb. So some really good adventures for the Southlands. Well, there's other prompts as well. One that I really liked is basically the group of PCs is hired to retrieve a rogue who had been caught trying to sneak into the Citadel, right? And rumors are that the rogue has been turned into a statue and is on display in the Keeper of the Citadel's audience chambers. For your adventure, you can portray the Keeper as a cunning and power-hungry dwarf who is obsessed with obtaining a magical artifact that is said to possess great power. However, the twist is that the Keeper did not turn the rogue into a statue, and he believes that the rogue's transformation holds the key to unlocking the magic item's full potential. This prompt can be expanded to a tale of deception, ancient secrets, and moral dilemmas, as the heroes confront their own desires and face the Keeper. They will decide the fate of Tanserhall and the rogue, and the magical artifact that holds great power. So this is an interesting one, because it doesn't really tell us what the artifact is. There's all sorts of stuff here. I kind of, what this one reminded me of too, is if you're a Dragonlance fan, kind of reminded me of from the original Dragonlance modules, not really in the novels. Oh, it's in one of the newer novels, but when they had to find the hammer in the Dwarven Kingdom of Thorbardin, it was like, because these Dwarven cities, they're huge. They're, think about like, Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, the Mines of Moria, how massive these places are. There's forgotten parts of it and abandoned parts and all sorts of stuff where things could happen and things could be hidden. So you can have an epic adventure without ever leaving Tanserhall.
None of the material in the lore talks about how these people are turned into statues. It's too easy to go the route of the Gorgon. So definitely come up with a different element that causes this. It just could be some arch that's warded after a certain period of time or so many steps in, past that arch. That's when a person afflicted could start to feel their limbs stiffen, ultimately to when they are just statue-like. And another interesting thing you can do is, rather than having them look like stone statues, have them look like straight up, fully fleshed human beings that are just paralyzed. And it kind of puts them into a deep sleep to where their eyes could be open, their eyes could be closed, but they look like human beings, except their skin, even though it's, has flesh tones colors, it's hard as a rock. You can't even cut through it with a sword.
You could also do something like the minus his hand, where it rather than stone, it turns things to gold. And if the keeper gets a hold of it, he might turn everything to gold. It could be one of those things where it gets very out of control. Like, anything I touch turns to gold, but in the meantime, everybody touches turns to gold as well. Or another option would be that maybe it's an artifact that only the true king can hold this thing. Anybody else who touches it is turned to stone. So it's like you have to get it back safely. And then does the keeper want to touch it? Does he really believe he has the divine right? So it could be something like that as well. There could be a lot of just cool things you can do with something like that.
Or his lineage is completely cursed and can't handle the artifact at all. And needs somebody whose lineage allows them to. And then that person is like kept prisoner by the keeper to do his will, essentially, or her will.
It could be the dwarf in the party. A dwarf in the party, turns out they have somehow they have the lineage, and now all of a sudden the keeper turns on them.
So there's a couple other prompts in this section that we won't get into, but for years I overlooked those prompts, and then I started looking at them, looking for ideas, and they are really helpful. And just, with maybe about 10-15 minutes, you can sketch out a really simple outline that is the basis of your adventure.
Let's move on, though. Let's head up to our next area, which is Björnrike. This is a territory to the south of the Reaching Mountains, southern range, and known as the Kingdom of the Bear. The kingdom is home to Fey Bears and Werebears, who control this vast region. As long as visitors respect the King of Bears and defer to his people when challenged, the sparse population doesn't really mind trespassers. The area is commonly visited by berserkers who study the way of the bear, as well as by druids and rangers who seek an excellent animal companion. However, a few unscrupulous adventurers hunt the inhabitants for their furs, which are believed to have magical properties that protect against the cold. Each year, a fair number of hulking adventurers resembling bears leave Björnrike to explore the world, looking to find fame, glory, a challenge, or to sate their curiosity about the world beyond. Although the sight of an armed and armored bear standing upright may cause a lot of fear at first, if you understand the bear folk's temperament and always give them the first portion of fish at mealtime, they become formidable adventuring companions. Now, the king of the bear folk is named Messi Kamen. He presides over a court of bear jarls, witches, and oracles. The king and his court are usually engaged in hunting activities around the capital, feasting, brawling, and drinking the finest honey mead from huge stone bowls. The King of Bears resides in the capital city of Glooming Crag, which juts out from the foothills of the Reaching Mountains. Its interior is a maze of caves and tunnels. Kingship is decided by yearly challenges that are technically open to anyone. However, Messi Kamen, who is known as Old Honeypaws for his love of sweets and other indulgences, has defeated all challengers for more than 20 years. On the coast, southwest of Glooming Crag, lies the most cosmopolitan portion of the realm, the predominantly human town of Bjeornheim, Bear City in the northern tongue, which sits at the wide coastal delta of the river Lachs. Each spring, vast hordes of salmon make their way upstream, attracting a legion of bear and human fisherfolk who compete sometimes violently for their shares of the annual bounty. Aquatic monsters sometimes follow these shoals, disrupting the annual festival until heroes deal with them. Bjornheim employs a unique defense against raiders. Hives of ferocious bees ring the town, swarming out to attack anyone who threatens during the day. Only residents are immune to this stinging rampage since they eat so much local honey that they smell of it and are accepted by the hives. At night, semi-domesticated bears patrol with local lycanthropes, and they treat any creature walking on two legs with deep suspicion. Few dare to trouble the town, so Bjornheim has earned a reputation as a safe place to make port. Traders from Vadim and the exotic kingdoms of the Far East visit here, as well as centaurs and elves from the Rotharian plains, carav wagons, and Kazaki tribes. Like the hives that protect them, Bjornheim is ruled by a queen, Johanna Honeyhair, an elderly but still golden-haired druid of the Bear Maiden, who is a bearfolk goddess of dawn and honey, often associated with Lot of the Golden. Queen Johanna rules from Beowulf Hall, overlooking the town. The mead brewed by her family is the finest ale in the north, made from local honey, and is renowned for its excellent portage ale. Each year, many casts traveled north in tribute to the Bear King and a tempting target for bandits. While large in land, Björnrike is small in population, about 29,000, comprising of humans, bearfolks, dwarves, wereboars, elfmarts, and Trollheim. Blooming Crag is the largest settlement with a population of 7,800, followed by Bjeornheim with a population of 3,900. The population worships Bengta Bear Maiden, which is a mask of Lada, Thor, Freyr, and Freya, Had, which is a mask of Charon, and Votan. The economy and trade centers around fish, honey, ale, mead, venison, berries, and cider. Now, we have no idea what the Trollheim ancestry was, so we had to consult the gods, namely Wolfgang and koboldpress Facebook forum. John Walter posted in the forum that Trollheim are described in the Pathfinder Northlands book and are the Midgard equivalent of Laplanders who reside in Scandinavia. Wolfgang confirmed this directly in a follow-up post. So thanks, guys. So from the Pathfinder Northlands book, Trollheim are light and willy rustic folk and worshippers of the Vanir. They use Finnish names and prefer deep forests, lush mountain valleys, or grassy plains to coastal fjords. Some say it is a sign of their cowardice that they try to lurk out of reach of Reaver hordes. Others that they prefer the wilder world of the Vanir patriots. Now, as far as like what their physical description is, the Trollheim tend to be short and lithe with darker skin. Their clothing is practical and rustic, although outfits for special occasions are often dyed in brightly patterned colors. The society itself prefers to live in small and independent family groups. Their society stresses the sanctity of nature and reverence for the Vanir and the North's few remaining Fae. Many families have courted Fae alliances for years and have been honored with gifts of favors. So, despite talks of omens and signs of Fimbulwinter, Messy Common remains unconvinced of their veracity, largely due to the lack of outside threats. However, the peace in the town has given the Cult of Ragnarok time to plan their attack. They are creating a bomb made from their own honey that temporarily wards off the bees, and the cult is producing honey from discreet trade. Once Bjornheim's defenses no longer function during the day, old honeypaws may find reason to change his assessment of the signs and importance.
Now, the adventure prompts kind of play into that last point that Joe made. The first prompt centers around the guardian bees of Bjornheim, and they are dying off rapidly and mysteriously, and our heroes are tasked to find a cause and a cure. Now, is this a prelude to attacks, perhaps by the agents of Boreas? Who knows? It could be the Cult of Ragnarok. It could be whomever you want. So this is one of those prompts that you can kind of pull material from real life. For example, an airborne potion mixed in the wild by an eccentric druid that acts as a pesticide to the bees. Or, how about an expansion of the city of Bjornheim, where urban sprawl is happening and it's actually affecting the bees' habitat in some manner. In this expansion, patches of green space are being stripped of all weeds and their flowers, which bees rely on for food. Or you can introduce a warm winter, bring in climate change into your adventures. And this climate change is waking up the bees too early. And when they wake up, there's nothing to eat because the flowers they need to feed on have already bloomed and died. So, hopefully you have a druid in your group and that druid can do something about the climate and the flowers and things like that. So the bees have something to eat. And lastly, the bees can be affected by a new pathogen, weakening and killing them. So yeah, this may be too much like the real world, but there is a lot you can do with this prompt for this adventure. Because remember, the bees are the defense of Bjornheim. And you can make them little tiny bees. You can make them bigger bees, however you want. There's just a lot of flexibility to that. And what is cooler than a city that's protected in bees?
What a cool! This is one of the coolest things I read in this area, because I was like, man, that is a cool defense, And it's not just the defense; it's also their economy. I mean, this is where they're getting a lot of their food. They're making their mead from, which they're using for trade. So the bees are obviously super important here. And I know we talked about all these real world examples, but you can really Google what's killing the bees or things like that. You can probably Google some stuff about like what's happening to bees in the real world and use it as prompts for this game if you wanted to. But I also thought about Honey Queen, which is out of the old Margrave. Like there's a little adventure that you could probably modify and do something with here. You could do something maybe with like some kind of killer bees where they're taking over the hives, something like that. I mean, there's so many options you could have. So many options.
Wasps. Wasps like to attack bees, so that could be, a foe.
Yeah, tons and tons of cool stuff here. But the whole bee concept here just makes this area so unique and neat. Another prompt that I really like. This one, I would have some fun with this one. So the Bear King has decided he wants to marry Johanna, the ruler of Bjornheim. So good luck with that, because she has rebuffed many of his advances in the past. So our heroes are sent to woo her on his behalf. Buckle in, bards, this one's for you. Because if you do your job too well, she falls for the honey tongue of one of our heroes, angering the Bear King and putting the PCs in a rather awkward situation. So you could totally adapt material from Cyrano de Bergerac story and create an NPC who helps one of your PCs woo Johanna. The NPC writes countless letters expressing his deep feelings for Johanna, which one of your PCs delivers as their own writing. Better yet, the players write their own letters involving the entire party, making for a great social encounter. Using the Cyrano de Bergerac trope for the last one is a bit of an obvious choice, so I'd be curious as to how you would use these prompts or one for your own table. Drop some of your ideas for this one in the comments, because I'm really curious to see what people come up with. Another one I thought of was Roxanne. Remember the movie Roxanne? So think about this. You bring the Bear King with, right? And he's got to woo her, but you're feeding him the lines, but she realizes it and falls for you instead. Essentially, it's the idea. Like, this could be a really comical adventure, I think, if you really wanted to play with this.
Yeah, and sometimes players aren't as creative as they would like to be in a pinch. This is something that you would definitely need to warn them about, that we're going to go into an adventure that deals with a lot of romance and wooing. So bring your best material to the table, because you're going to need to help each other accomplish the task. But I like your idea, Cyrano de Bergerac. It's one of those old stories. And like you said, it's an obvious choice, along with the movie Roxanne. Steve Martin is who you were trying to remember.
Thank you.
It's just one of those classic tales that you can use. The guy who really wants to have Johanna, in this case, fall in love with him, she ends up falling in love with somebody else. And can you imagine his reaction when Johanna plants a big kiss on one of the PCs?
So imagine this, right? The bard's like a little gnome or a halfling, and Johanna falls for them. And so you already have that mixed match. And then the Bear King is like the biggest, meanest guy around. This can get comically dangerous.
Yeah, it sure can. And this is not your typical, let's go fight and kill somebody. This one is where you have to really test your players to come up with a great solution.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a fun one. Highly recommend. Definitely comment below some ideas for this one, because I want to see what people come up with for this one.
Yeah, that'd be great. Put your ideas in the comments, and we'll read them in future episodes.
Let's move on to one of my favorite places in the Northlands, Trollheim. So this is located south of the Reaching Mountains Northern Range and east of Jotunheim. It's a country comprised of fertile forests and an array of flora and fauna. Its inhabitants include hunters, explorers, and raiders who are deeply committed to the culture of the North. Regardless of whether they are human, dwarf, or troll, the people of Trollheim are a proud and fiercely independent lot. They spend their days farming, brawling, raiding, and toasting the gods, with little interest in talk of kings and kingdoms. Most of Trollheim's humans live in fjords, while the dwarves reside in mountain peaks, and the trolls, fae, and other races mark their homes in the forest. The inhabitants of Trollheim live in independent farmsteads and villages that come together in regional things when danger threatens. Despite the fierce independence of the Trollkin, once considered mere freaks of nature, they're reproducing rapidly and expanding their reach. This development is causing tension with the most isolated Reaver dwarven clans who are being pushed into Trollheim. The Jarls who claim the land find themselves in a tough spot as the dwarves are relentless enemies when crossed, but notoriously unreceptive to diplomatic overtures. If the Trollkin continue to drive refugees from Wolfheim into Trollheim, the delicate balance of power between the Jarls and the region could weaken, allowing the dwarves to run them out entirely. Many look to the seasoned Yuffie Toothless to take charge or surrender to a younger, stronger Jarl. Yuffie, facing a serious threat to his reign, contemplates elevating a Trollkin Jarl, granting legitimacy to the clan of Trollkin. This could create a useful and numerous ally against the political threat of the dwarves the Trollkin push into the region. However, how this might shift the politics of the region or Yuffie's reign remains a source of heated debate. The trade in the region is suffering, and even the trolls who sell their wares throughout Trollheim do so with a growing sense of trepidation. Some human Jarls protest, claiming that an obscure poetic work describes the existence of a Trollkin Jarl as a Ragnarok prophecy. This has led many human warriors to challenge Trollkin they encounter in combat. 7 years have passed since Jarl Oswald of the Havard clan led a combined fleet of his longships and those of many other clans south on a great raid, only to vanish without a trace somewhere in the Neater Straits. This has left the human population of Western Trollheim almost leaderless, creating chaos and ending many feuds, while also making room for more Trollkin and scattered Frost Goblin tribes. Power-hungry heirs still seek lands and foes to prove themselves against while those with slimmer chances of inheritance look to take cultivated lands. A world tree called Votan's Tree stands in Trollheim near the mouth of the Tyrstein River, downriver from the Fallen Kingdoms. The Raven folk often roost in the branches on their way to various Jarls or to consult with their seers and doomspeakers. Legends claim that Votan learned the runes here, and the Raven folk maintain a shrine in his honor, though few humans visit this sacred grove. Now, real quick, I do want to point out here that the tension between the Trollkin and the dwarves can make for a few interesting in-game prompts. Even in my own game, I have a dwarf and a troll as my players, and I kind of force them to figure out why they're allies because of how much tension there is between them. So that tension between dwarves and Trollkin can be an interesting point in any of your games when you encounter the two together.
Let's talk about the capital. Capital is Noatun, and it was founded by the god Njord, who saved the city from a disastrous flood. The city is built more of stone than wood, thanks to the skill of local dwarf clans, and is guarded by high, thick walls. The trading docks and famous shipyards are surrounded by an enchanted seawall that magically calms both wave and weather. And the wall is surmounted by 9 towers, whose masters of each tower are responsible for the wall's upkeep and defense. It is a prestigious post, and the rival tower lords of Noatun's elite form the core of the king's court. Now, as Joe mentioned, the current king is Yuffie Toothless, a warlord of unseemly age. I mean, he's old. He's physically frail, but he is still as cunning as Loki. He is skilled in keeping one step ahead of power-hungry Jarls and rival kings. Now, the city is rich and cosmopolitan, welcoming traders and visitors from far away. Longships laden with plunder and thirsty raiders, Kazaki and Centaur caravans, Iron Crag airships, and occasional flying islands of cloud giants or magicians of distant Seacom are all welcome. Even trolls with gold to spend are welcome but closely watched. So the next city is Amberhall. It's a large coastal village with a lively trading post. Amberhall thrives under the direction of a capable Jarl named Gunhilda the Left-Handed, and she swears her fealty to Yuffie Toothless in Noatun. The lore describes Gunhilda as a human ranger at about 13th level, so she's a pretty powerful person. Now, because it's a coastal town, the sailors and ships of Amberhall are well known for their evasive capabilities when dodging pirates. They have sailed as far as Barcella, but lately they have been focusing their efforts on New Wolfheim. Although it is a risky proposition for non-dwarven traders, it is a profitable one.
So for our next location, perched on a steep cliff at the end of a heavily forested fjord, Varnerhall is a remote yet prosperous village that supports high mountain farmholds. The clever use of terrain and shrewd placement of defensive fortifications makes Varnerhall surprisingly secure, considering the wild country that surrounds it. Varnerhall maintains friendly relations with the nomadic people who pass through the region, trading for furs, ivory, and reliable cold weather equipment and clothing. Jarl Engvar Ironsides has granted the nomads and even a clan of goblins shelter within his fortifications and defended them when they have sought his aid in the past. In return, they provide valuable intelligence about anything from hostile creatures headed toward the hall to inclement weather on its way.
And now the last city is Jarrgard. It's on the shore of the Black Lake, and there is a dwarven fort named Jarrgard, which is situated atop a low hill and is covered in snow. The fort protects a profitable silver mine and is known for its isolation. Hentgolf Trollbiter, a renowned warrior dwarf from Wolfheim, leads longboats downriver when the ice thaws and the trip is full of life. During this time, salmon swim upstream and are often chased by mated pairs of maho, who use Black Lake as a nursery before leading their young back downriver. Jarrgard takes care of its own needs and does not engage in trade with other settlements. Hentgolf sent a message to Noatun informing Ufi Toothless that any attempts to approach his ships, the top half of the river, or Jarrgard would be deemed an attack and dealt with severely. Ufi disregarded the message, citing the remoteness of Jarrgard, and responded by saying he would respect Hentgolf's demands as long as Hentgolf agreed not to set foot on the moon. Can you imagine that? That's almost like the message that the German general got in World War II from Bastogne, the general in command, of nuts, So, sure, I'll agree to this when you step foot on the moon. But anyway, as you can imagine, Hentgolf has yet to reply. Despite this, Jarrgard remains a distant and notorious unfriendly destination. Yeah, Joe, you are absolutely right. This area is just adventure rich. So much to do, so many different cultures, so many different types of cities. You're right. It is a great place to adventure.
I'm a fan of the Trollkin though. Like that, it's one of my favorite Midgard races, the Trollkin. So it's just a cool area.
So yeah, be like Joe. Adventure in Trollheim. Experience this rich land of cultures. The first prompt in the Midgard world book for Trollheim, the PCs must bring together a delicate alliance of Noatun humans, woodland fae, and mountain dwarves to resist a Trollkin horde led by a powerful Ice Maiden sorceress, which threatens them all with extinction. So what can you do with this prompt? To me, sounds like an epic quest that can be broken down into several parts. So this is another one of those adventure prompts that I don't think can be played in one session.
Yeah.
Taking a cue out of Lord of the Rings, you've got a council of Noatun. And they meet in Noatun where a delicate alliance is formed to deal with the threat. And you're taking these different divergent heritages and putting them together. They're not so sure of one another, but again, sounds like the scene from the Council of Elrond from Lord of the Rings. But you find something like this in many tales throughout history, so it's not unique to Tolkien's book. So we have a problem to solve. Who will help? Let's go get them. So the PCs are there. They get their assignment. And since the threat is vast and the alliance is spread out, the PCs are tasked to defend a small village in the hinterlands, where they find a clue to decipher the Ice Maiden's prophecy. And it always comes down to the PCs solving the big problem. Now, while they are there, the PCs help to fend off a Trollkin rampage from stealing their crops. This part of the adventure totally riffs off of the Seven Samurai, the Akira Kurosawa masterpiece. I love that movie. If you've never seen it, definitely watch it. It's a timeless story. The next part of the adventure starts to deal with the world tree because there is a world tree in Trollheim, so may as well visit it. So Get your PCs to visit the Wotan's World Tree to get help with deciphering the Ice Maiden's prophecy, which leads them to the location of a magical artifact that can be used to defeat the Ice Maiden and her Trollkin horde. All right, next is the conclusion, the big climax, the final battle. And this is where the PCs take their fight directly to the Ice Maiden's fortress. If the PCs are successful, her hold on the Trollkin horde is broken. So, magic items, alliances, recruiting people from the village to help, lots you can do with this. Again, I'm just riffing here. I'd love to hear what you put in the comments.
Yeah, I mean, basically, let's go kick Elsa's ass, right? Because it's totally it's evil Elsa, guys. Come on.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Elsa. Come on, man. Like you gotta let it go.
And build a snowman along the way.
Yeah, build a snowman. You know what? There's actually, I want to say it's in Tome of Beasts too. There is these evil snowmen creatures. I know I saw them somewhere in one of the Midgard, in one of the books. There are evil snowmen. Like they're just, like Jack Frost from the old horror movie kind of looking snowmen. So yeah, have some fun with that. Like ice elementals. There's snow giants in Tome of Beasts too. I mean, there's all sorts of. Oh God, it's so good. Give me this adventure. I like this one a lot.
Yeah,
so much good stuff. Literally, think about the movie Frozen, right? Like the Ice Queen goes all crazy, goes up the mountains to her fortress, and then they all kind of convene. They're like, "We're gonna send people to go stop her," and like they send a bunch of people up after her, and like, there's the big ice elemental and the snowman. I mean, you could literally just turn this into a twisted version of Frozen for your table. Your party will love it.
Right,
do it.
Brilliant idea.
All right. Let's bring it back down to a little bit more traditional D&D aspect here, because there's actually 5 prompts in this section, and we're just picking 2 ones that we like. This one I liked because it's one of my favorite D&D genres. It's a whodunit. I like whodunits. They usually go really well. You can generally do them in 1 session, maybe 2, and everyone usually has a pretty good time as long as you put in a good little twist with it. But this one is, there's basically a feast thrown at King Euphes, and it's attended by the PCs and dwarves and Kazaki and centaurs, a whole bunch of people. Different Jarls will all be there. So there's a bunch of people there, and this highly respected Jarl is poisoned, and the PCs have to find the killer among the many guests and clear their names at the same time. With this prompt, you can create an adventure that uses the common murder mystery formula. Someone is murdered. The PCs are tasked with searching for clues, ruling out possibilities, and then revealing the identity of the murderer near the end of the adventure. This particular adventure is very similar to an adventure called Murder in the Crossroads, which is in the Midgard Saga book. So take a look at that. You can maybe use that or modify that, incorporate that into this if you need a little help with how to run the mystery. Maybe go watch the old movie Clue. Like, you get some good ideas. Like, I love taking stuff like that we just talked about using Frozen. Go watch the movie Clue and turn that into a D&D adventure kind of thing. Obviously, add the more darker themes and stuff, but the right group, sometimes a little comedy in there can be a lot of fun.
That movie is corny enough to work in a D&D game.
Every now and then, like if you've been having, especially if you're running a really serious campaign for a while, and you just need that little bit of break. You need something a little fun, a little light. Well, maybe it's a holiday weekend. You guys want to do something a little off the cuff, off the main campaign. Throw something like this little whodunit in there and have some fun with it. And make it a little silly because it could be a lot of fun.
If you're a big mystery fan and you've read some Agatha Christie mysteries in the past, I mean, they were written a long, long time ago. Yeah, they still hold up. And gosh, you can. This could be like a special event campaign where you have your players create all new characters, because they know they're going to be a whodunit, and so you have a character that's kind of like Columbo, from the TV series. Yeah. Just take these characters from literature and television and just have fun with it.
You gave me a great idea, right? Because there is an episode of Doctor Who with Agatha Christie, and there's this giant bee that is killing people. So you can literally somehow tie this in back with the Bear King and all the stuff over in Bjornheim with the bees, and somehow tie that in. Like one of the Jarls here is actually like somehow attached to what's going on over in Bjornheim, and he has this giant killer bee that's killing people.
a lot you can do with this, a lot you can do with a whodunit, and definitely a adventure where you're going to want your players to create characters that are specific to this genre of adventure. Because your typical D&D character, they're like, let's go in and kill something. But you could just play with your regular party and see how it goes. Have fun with these prompts. They're there. I love that they put them in there. I didn't appreciate them as much at first, but we're going to do a lot of this in future. You know, when we're in a particular area, we're going to take these prompts and try to flesh them out for you. And the whole point of us expanding on these adventure prompts is simple. koboldpress is giving you a seed to an adventure you can write or outline and then bring it to the table. But if you're not comfortable with using these prompts, it's cool. koboldpress offers plenty of adventures in many of the regions found in the Midgard World Book. You know, like I said, not all of them, but a good chunk. You know, they have so much material that rivals the Library of Wizards of the Coast. Just so rich.
Oh, yeah. Use that tool that we mentioned earlier. I'm sure we have a link for it down in the description. It's on their page, though. Oh, that tool is everything, man. It's such a good tool.
So that's about it for Tanserhall, Björnrike, and Trollheim. And now it's time for my most favorite part of our show, the Creature Showcase. So in today's Creature Showcase, we're going to continue our deep dive into the twisted and wondrous bestiaries of Midgard to unearth some of the most fearsome and fascinating creatures that roam its darkened realms. From the icy peaks of the Northlands to the sun-scorched desert of the Southland, Midgard teems with a rich tapestry of creatures, both monstrous and magical. So gather around the hearth, listeners, sharpen your blades, and prepare to embark on a journey into the heart of Midgard's bestiaries. Joe, what do you have for us today?
Man, I had a lot of choices today, but one stood out to me. I was thinking a lot about Tanserhall and those areas of it that maybe are lost and abandoned and old. Let's say you find yourselves deep within the Dwarven mines. This section has been abandoned for some time, perhaps hundreds of years or more. Dust covers nearly every surface, and there are cracked columns and stonework everywhere. You perceive through the darkness the wizard's staff lighting the way in front while the fighter brings up the rear, a torch held high. The shadows dance on the walls, making you think you see something moving out of the corner of your eye with nearly every step. A rock falls off to the left, and you shine your light in that direction. There's a small crack on the wall, less than 2 feet wide. Something in there? Suddenly, a large hand comes out of the crack, gray-skinned with long, sharp black nails. The hand grabs the wall and pulls as the arm follows. Then a long leg, nearly 15 feet in length, but it's contorted in a strange way, allowing it to move through the narrow opening. Next, 2 red eyes, ringed in blood, can be seen as a large, gray head with sharp teeth emerges. But the head, too, is turned nearly upside down. The giant creature pulls itself from this impossibly small crack, its body bent and mangled in strange ways that should not be possible. It stares at you as it approaches. You hear bones cracking as it straightens its limbs and stands upright, nearly 30 feet in height. This tall, thin giant with sharpened teeth and long black nails stalks towards you, its lanky body taking large strides. It smiles a wickedly toothy, unsettling grin, and then opens its mouth in a bloody, saliva-filled roar and charges. This is what is known as a thin giant.
Wow.
This tall, emaciated giant has unnaturally long arms, ending in razor-sharp talons. It has a strangely, long head with glowing red eyes and fearsome fangs. Its skin is like a dark gray-green, and its body is completely devoid of hair. These giants lurk in abandoned mansions, dark wells, ancient mine shafts, and similar locations. Thin giants are one of the most sinister and frightening of all giant species. The villains of many children's nightmares, thin giants are feared even by other giants, as their life-draining bite and their ability to get into tight spaces makes them unsettling at best and horrifying at worst. Thin giants don't get along with most creatures, but they have been observed leading groups of ghouls, eatercaps, and trolls to capture and devour prey. Thin giants have remarkable control over their bodies. They can twist their limbs into unnatural positions and even bend completely double. The flexibility and elasticity helps the giant shrug off crushing blows. They can stay in contorted positions for extraordinary lengths of time and use this to their advantage to ambush unsuspecting creatures. So these are like a CR9 huge giant. So they are classified as giants. They average about 168 hit points, but they can go all the way up to 256 if you want. Being giants, they have a very large stride, so they're moving about 40 feet per round. But again, like these guys are like thin, lanky. I almost feel like they kind of have that traditional body that like we see in TV of like aliens, those thin, lanky bodies. So they're just going to have this weird stride to them when they move. Their arms basically hang down almost to their knees. Also, unlike many giants, they're extremely nimble. They actually have a dexterity of 16, and their proficiency in dex saves as well as con and wisdom. So when you have proficiency in dex, con, and wisdom, that's going to make them very good at resisting a lot of spells and abilities that require saves. I mean, that's like the majority of saves right there. However, they do have a low charisma, which is only 9, so as well as a fairly low intelligence. So that's where you can maybe get some of that damage done. Charisma-based saving throws and stuff like that could be good here. So aside from their ability to contort their bodies, they can use their claws to attack, dealing some damage. It's only about 13 damage, 2d6 plus 6. But their real ability is called Consuming Bite. So this is an attack that deals 2d8 plus 6 piercing damage, plus another 2d6 necrotic damage. But the target's hit point maximum is reduced by an amount equal to the necrotic damage, and the giant regains HP equal to that amount. So there's also no save for this, by the way. You get bit, 2d6, you might lose 12 HP from your max right off the bat, and he's healing for 12. That reduction lasts until you finish a long rest, and like most things that reduce HP, max HP, if you're reduced to 0, you're dead. There's no saving throws there either. So the giant does have a multi-attack. It's doing 2 claw attacks and one of its consuming bites. So it's a very simple creature to run, which I love. But its mere appearance, its hardiness, its strength, its nimbleness make it a tough and intimidating creature to face. And like I said earlier, they're often leading other creatures like the ghouls and the eater caps and trolls into battle. So this can make for a really tough fight. If you got a couple of trolls with this thing, or whatever else, a horde of ghouls and maybe 2 trolls in this thing, that's a fight right there. We're talking tier 3 party at this point to face something like that. But it's like I said, a claw attack, bite attack, and it can contort its body. That's its whole stat block. But it's resistant to those saves, and it's creepy. I just keep picturing like the girl from the movie The Ring when she comes out of the TV and she's all bent weird. And I mean, like the whole contortion thing and a dark, small giant coming out of a crevice this big. It's freaky. It's scary.
I was kind of freaking out in your lead-in, because I like to think that I know koboldpress bestiaries really well, but I have to admit, I don't recall ever seeing this creature, and it is terrifying.
Yeah, so I don't know if I mentioned or not. It's in Tome of Beasts 2, page 175. Tome of Beasts 2 is actually arguably my favorite of the bestiaries. It's tough because I love Creature Codex 2, but some of my favorite monsters are in Tome of Beasts 2. Yeah,
and man, the flexibility this creature offers in locations that you can play it is simply amazing. And I guarantee you, none of your players will ever have heard or come across such a creature. I mean, it'll scare the crap out of them.
Imagine like you're in a fight with like a giant or 2, and then this thing shows up and the giant just turn tail and run.
Oh,
and you're like, oh crap, what are we in for?
Yeah. I mean, giants afraid of something?
Trying to run away.
Yeah. What a creepy looking creature.
Creepy. I like creepy monsters, man. And I feel like, because we've been doing Empire of Ghouls, we've been in a very creepy theme, so I've been looking for creepy stuff. Tome of Beasts 2's got some good ones, and there was one that you and I, probably one I won't cover in Creature Showcase because it's a lower CR, but look up one called Husk or Giant Husk, because they're super cool. They're basically the opposite of skeletons. They're just bags of walking skin that can envelop you.
Right.
Great low-level undead monster. So much good stuff in that book.
Yeah. Those husks I used in the Midgard version of Curse of Strahd when they were in the village of Vallaki. My players never heard of a undead creature that had no bones. It was just a bag of skin. And every time they were whacking at them is like, how can these things stand upright? They have no support structure, whatsoever.
Magic.
And I just kept saying magic.
Yeah. I mean, what I would do literally is have these zombies come out, right? And the party thinks they're about to face zombies, but then the body rips open and the skeletons walk out. And now you have two creatures. You have skeleton and a husk instead of a zombie.
Great idea.
And then that would be a cool way to intro that fight.
That is a great idea. I'm going to have to rip that one off, Joe.
All right, we're off topic now. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so I took a creature that was mentioned or just kind of glossed over in the lore that we just went over. Here, let me set this up for you. Your heroes are deep into the caverns of Tanserhall. And they have gone to places that have not been explored in centuries. And as you venture deeper into the cavern, the already oppressive atmosphere grows even more foreboding. Bones of various creatures crunch on each footfall, and the stalactites point down upon you from above, casting eerie shadows on the cavern floor. Suddenly, a low growl echoes through the darkness, causing the hairs on the back of your neck to stand on end. Emerging from the shadows, you see a creature straight out of your worst nightmare. It's a towering beast that looks like a bear, but is somehow twisted by dark forces. Its fur is as black as ink and seems to absorb the remaining light, while its eyes burn with a malevolent crimson glow. Antlers sprout from its head, adding to its otherworldly visage, and its slavering jaws drip with a foul black secretion. You were warned about this creature, a spawn of Chernobog, born from the depth of darkness and malice. Its presence alone warns of terror and evil, and it now stands before you, ready to unleash its wrath. And as you prepare for the inevitable battle, you feel the hot, putrid smell of its breath and the weight of this creature's gaze upon you. Its hunger for violence and fear is palpable in the air. With a guttural roar, it lunges forward, eager to claim its next victim. So the Spawn of Chernobog from the Creature Codex is, as I described in the lead-in, a hulking, fiendish creature. The creature's most distinctive feature is its massive elk-like antlers that spread from either side of its glowing red eyes, adding to its otherworldly and fearsome appearances. It is a really capable creature, and the Spawn of Chernobog possesses a formidable physical strength of 22, a modest armor class of 14, and 90 average hit points that top out at 140, making a challenging foe to overcome for a CR4 creature. It is a relentless combatant, capable of making multiple attacks in a single turn with its razor-sharp claws and its powerful bite. Now, this bite is something that you want to avoid, and incurring a bite from a Spawn of Chernobog can result in a deadly disease known as Knight's Blood, which progresses through several stages, ultimately leading to a PC's gruesome transformation upon death. So, if you get bit, you don't have to roll a save right after that. You just go on and play, and this bite continues to slowly fester inside you. But after each long rest, the creature that received the bite must make a Constitution saving throw. On 2 successes, one on each long rest, the disease is cured. And the way it's written is, you take your long rest. At the end, you roll a Constitution saving throw, and you go on with your adventuring day. At the end of the long rest, you roll a second Constitution. So you need 2 successes. A failure, the disease progresses, forcing the creature to undergo a series of 5 different changes that is laid out in the stat block. And I'm not going to go over all of them. This is something that you can read on your own. Now, too often many GMs ignore or forget about diseases incurred during battle. I'm guilty. Because disease tends to derail your player's character like it would if it died. And that's all part of the drama from my opinion. And it's one of those unexpected events that will challenge your players and you as a GM. But so what? After a party gets their companion back to civilization to get cured, they can pick up where they left off. So the disease can be a great antagonist in your story. So don't forget, Keep the disease's progression at the top of your notes as a reminder, and make sure your players are tracking that as well. But let's get back to the critter. The Spawn of Chernobog is resistant to necrotic damage and immune to being charmed and frightened, rendering some conventional spellcasting tactics ineffective against it. However, it does have vulnerabilities, and its main vulnerability is radiant damage, and it also suffers from sunlight sensitivity, making it weaker when exposed to daylight. So when facing the Spawn of Chernobog, adventurers must capitalize on its vulnerability. They must test them out and see what's there. And then your spellcasters can start to rain hell with abilities that deal radiant damage, which can be particularly effective in weakening this creature. Because again, these come from the depths of wherever. They're not creatures that typically walk through a forest. So utilizing the environment to create areas of bright light can also help negate the spawn's advantage in darkness, thereby mitigating its combat effectiveness. And due to its formidable physical prowess, engaging the creature in close combat should be approached with caution. Instead, employing ranged attacks and spells to keep a distance can help maintain a tactical advantage. Additionally, exploiting its susceptibility to sunlight can allow clever adventurers to gain the upper hand, either by luring the creature into daylight or utilizing spells that create legitimate sunlight. So, the Spawn of Chernobog is a genuinely terrifying adversary, embodying the darkest aspects of the world. Its presence serves as a grim reminder of the horrors that lurk in the shadows, and only the most courageous and resourceful adventurer stand a chance against its malevolent might. It's cool.
It is cool. It's essentially just like a black bear with red eyes and elk horns, except that black is not just fur. It's like this inky, darker than darkness black. The disease is really like, we didn't really go into what the disease does, but I mean, first day you can't speak because your tongue turns black, then it's like your eyes turning red, then your skin starts to secrete oil, and then your veins turn black, and then finally you die when the horns burst through your head and you turn into a black ooze on the floor and this creature just emerges.
Yeah.
Like, it's brutal. And it's a CR4, guys. CR4.
And again, I mentioned this in the last episode, and I'm guilty of it. Just don't pick a creature and drop it in your game. Really think through it. Spend at least 5-10 minutes thinking through how you can play this creature. In the past, when I don't really spend some time learning the creature, the PCs just defeat it within a round or two. There's a lot of capabilities that this creature has that make it harder for the PCs to deal with. And again, I always tell my players, if you're having a hard time against a creature, retreat is always an option.
It always is an option. We talked a lot today about story prompts. I find story prompts in these monster books all the time. I'll just look through it. I see a monster and an ability, and I'm like, that's an adventure right there. And you could use this as an NPC was bitten by this thing and is now suffering the disease, and you have to help somehow, or you have to go and stop it before it does it to somebody else. It could be a small town being terrorized by this thing. Similar to your classic, there's a werewolf terrorizing our town. Well, instead, there's one of these horrible things out there. And if one of your party members gets the disease, that's an adventure into itself. Yeah, you have to say, make 2 successful con saves, or maybe there's another cure out there that you can come up with. Greater restoration, or you just got to find the right healer, or you have to find an antidote or something, right? I mean, you can do other stuff with it.
Yeah,
but it's a story hook right there, and the monster itself is its own story hook.
Yeah. And I know we tend to be preaching to the choir. A lot of our advice is geared towards the new game master. I relied heavily on experienced game masters, watching podcasts and watching live play adventures to really develop the craft of being a game master. And I'm still working at it. I've been doing it for more than 10 years. And, I pick up a little nugget of advice from somebody. And that's our intent with this advice, not to tell you that you're doing it wrong. It's more geared towards the game master that doesn't have as many hours in that chair as many of us do.
You know what? It doesn't matter how long I've been doing this. You and I will be talking and you'll say something like, I've never thought of that. That's a great idea. I get inspiration from new DMs sometimes that just because they just have fresh eyes on something, I'm like, that's a great idea. I would never thought of that myself.
Yeah.
So
true. So true.
The other thing I was thinking, like you said, we've been gearing this towards DMs. Hey, players, what if your backstory is that you were attacked by one of these things, and though you were cured, your veins are now black. They're permanently blackened, and it's just a character trait of yours. And maybe you have some kind of grudge against one of these things and you want to go and find and kill it or something. I mean, that could be your backstory right here with this monster.
And you still have the antlers, but you're not an Alcide.
Yeah. Maybe you're a druid with black veins and the antlers sticking out of your head. There's ideas out there.
Yeah. And that brings to light the session 0. You guys can just have conversations and riff off of each other. And that way you're developing right out of the bat a very cohesive party that has relationships with one another in some way. So don't skip the session 0 when you start a campaign. When you're going to start a series of one-shots, that's also a campaign. Make sure your players are creating characters that make sense to the world that you're taking them into. An example I have is, sometimes I'll bring a character to a convention, and when I learn more about what the adventure is about, hey, I got to play a different character because this character will not work at all. No matter how much you love this character, you've got to be respectful to your players to play something that is part of the team, and also respectful to the game master for the story that they're telling.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I have a little folder of characters I take with me to the con.
Yeah, but I do too.
Yeah, I mean, again, chances are, I would say the majority of our audience are probably GMs. So, we're giving you a lot of this good lore information. Use it to help your players come up with their characters' backstories, where they're from, what their relationships are. I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about the dwarves and the trolls, how one of my players is a trollkin and one of them is a dwarf. And those two generally really don't like each other. So I told them, I'm like, come up with a backstory of why you two are not just traveling companions, but best friends. I want you two to be like besties. And they wrote a whole backstory based on that. And it is fantastic. So with your knowledge, you give them a little, like, this is where you'd be from, this is what the environment is like, and then give them a little seeds of information, let them run with it and see what they come up with.
Well, a lot to digest. Thank you for tuning in today's episode of That Midgard Show. We love hearing from our listeners and value your feedback and comments on the content we discussed. But fear not, our journey is far from over. Join us next time as we continue our trek across the Northlands and explore the depths of Midgard's bestiaries, uncovering the secrets and mysteries hidden within their pages.
If you have thoughts, questions, or insights about today's episodes, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us in several ways. Drop a comment for today's episodes on your YouTube channel. We read and respond to every comment, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts with us and your fellow listeners. I know we gave you some good prompts today to comment down below, so make sure I want to hear from you guys in some of those. On the socials, we're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the koboldpress official Discord server. There you can send us a direct message or tag us in your post to join the conversation. You can also leave a review or rating on your favorite podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, or Stitcher. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners who could share our love for the Midgard campaign set. So, guys, that's it for today. And remember, as Wolfgang Barr says,
strip it for parts and make it your own. Thank you for being a part of our community. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye now.
Bye, guys.